One historian calls it the other side to the Anzac story. During the First World War, almost 7,000 people of German extraction in Australia were interned in camps purely because of their background. They included naturalised British subjects and those who'd been born here. The discovery overseas of a lost cache of photographs has shed light on their lives in the camps, and their pictures and stories are about to be exhibited in Sydney. Sarah Dingle reports.
It documents a chapter in the Australian history which was completely forgotten.
Taken in Australia more than 90 years ago, these photographs are a time capsule. Their story might have been lost if not for Nadine Helmy.
In 2004, I was doing some research work at Trial Bay Jail. Some very interesting black and white photographs caught my eye. They were just stunning, expressive, and I saw immediately that the person who took those photos was an artist at his craft.
That person was a young German photographer named Paul Debotsky. He was one of almost 7,000 people imprisoned in Australian camps as enemy aliens during World War I. Like the vast majority of internees, Paul Debotsky was deported at the war's end. However, he left behind a clue, the name of his family's village, Dürfen, in an old notebook.
The library put me to get in touch with the local historian, who said yes, of course, he knew the Debotsky family, and this is how we unearthed the Debotsky collection.
Throughout World War I, Paul Debotsky was moved from Torrens Island Camp in South Australia to Trial Bay in northern New South Wales, and finally to Sydney's Holsworthy. With his camera, he documented the hidden world behind the barbed wire.
In the camps, you had to somehow also survive. So Paul set up a shop and photographed everything in the camp.
The artistry, the ingenuity, the talent that was there, that was the German-Australian community.
Historian Gerhard Fischer has co-authored a book with Nadine Helmy about the Debotsky collection.
The largest camp was the one in Holsworthy, near Liverpool. That was called the German concentration camp, Liverpool. And they had about 6,000 people there. They only had a few toilets and a few cold showers. The accommodation was pretty basic as well. At Torrens Island, there was some brutality from on the side of the guards, who had to deal with what they thought was mutinous behaviour of some of the internees.
Despite their situation, the internees were determined to lead industrious lives.
A tradesperson in front of his many hammers, or the butchers standing proudly underneath loops of sausages. And Paul documented all that in his unique way. The internees were proud. They were proud of the life that they created for themselves. They were very aware that that was their only way of surviving mentally.
The theatre, in particular, became a popular escape from their surroundings, with the male internees filling all the roles.
They stand there in their petticoats, stockings and all, beautiful petticoats, white, fluffy, really nice costumes, and then you look at the head, and there's this male head and two cigars hanging from their lips.
What I had dreaded has happened. Yesterday I landed in the German POW camp at Liverpool. I'm still utterly beside myself.
Actor John Williams will read camp diaries as part of an exhibition of the Debotsky photos. Researching his family history in the National Archives, John Williams was astonished to discover intelligence reports filed about his great-grandfather, Leopold Hauser, a Melbourne baker of Austrian heritage.
They reveal probably more about Australians at the time than they do about Leopold himself. The paranoia, I guess, that was going on.
Let's read the report that was handed in by that watchful neighbour of your great-grandfather.
Okay, yep. To Colonel Wallace, I feel it's my duty to write my impressions re a bakery in Northcote, which is full of Austrians and Germans. Some only arrived a week before the war.
This fear, of course, was being drummed up in order to keep people interested and motivated in the war, to keep enlistments up. So while the Australian soldiers overseas discovered mateship as their defining piece of identity, the Australian government at home at the same time instructed and encouraged Australians here to dob in their mates or their neighbours who had been their mates only a few weeks before.
John Williams' great-grandfather was ultimately not interned. Instead, he was kept under surveillance and subject to an enemy alien restriction order until the end of the war.
The people felt powerless, and so they just looked for the enemy at home.
It is the other side, perhaps, of the Anzac story that should be known just as much or just as well. As historians, we want the whole truth and not some partial, selective story.